the pressure's going to ramp up. There's going to be less homes for sale, more demand, tighter inventory, and what happens to the people and their emotions.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
What do you think our number one problem is right now as an organization, really anybody right now? What do you guys think it is? Right? The ultimate thing, all those you guys said are right. That was a problem. I'm getting hit by different ones. So how do I group that into one solution that everyone's having in 2021 right now? Is conversion. Conversion. Conversion to what? Conversion to your lead to appointment. Appointment to showing up to sign. And really we're losing a lot of people right now in the chaos of the market is when they sign to go under contract and then actually close with you. What's happening, you find them, you do all the work on the front end. If you can actually get them, right? Somebody's not taking them from you. Meantime, they're getting pissed off and then they're going somewhere else, working with somebody else. In essence, cheating on you, going with somebody else. Why is that? Because there's so much chaos in the marketplace, the people become uneasy. They start searching for someone else, another solution, right? Knowing that there's not really anything better. They don't know that. They're just looking for whatever can help appease them in that moment because there's something that they're missing, they're not getting. And I noticed the pattern in every single person. It's also that's not true, but in their mind, they believe it's fact. On the seller side, on the buyer side, all the way through, it's the same exact thing. But ultimately, it comes down to conversion, right, and us. And so I was like, man, what are the top things that's causing this, and how do we fix this as an organization? And I spent a lot of time on this, on the airplane, both here. I designed this in a way because it's really the top 4 things that we're seeing as a unit. And every one of you are in a different place on that. Kind of like I think Brandon Ryan said earlier, everyone may be in a different place in that journey, but you got to figure out where you're at and where you're up right now. Because we got to get that under control for 2021 to continue to dominate, because the only thing that's going to happen, the pressure's going to ramp up. There's going to be less homes for sale, more demand, tighter inventory, and what happens to the people and their emotions? They're going to be heightened. Does that mean they're more likely to stay with you or less likely to stay with you? Less likely. Okay, it's more chaos in the relationship, which means more people are going to be likely to try to get out and look for other options. And so you got to really be able to tie them in. I really kind of broke it down to 4 main things in a way that I think is super important. And it comes down to what we're seeing overall, right? I noticed this when I came back. I noticed it before I left. But the number one thing that we got to make sure we're hitting on in every single part of the transaction, from phone call all the way to the closing table, which I think is where most of the problem comes in, is number 1 is our connection. I mentioned this before, but it's heightened more than ever right now. What do you think that means? As the intensity is ramped up and if all this chaos is going on, sellers think it's super seller's market, buyers are frustrated, their emotions are high, it's hard to connect right now. And so what happens is you have to get better at connecting. And here's the thing. This starts from the very first phone call. I've noticed where some people are even sticking to the script and they're still not able to connect. Why? There's a million parts of that, and I try to figure out how do I break that down. Number 1, part thing you have to have at all times, especially in the beginning, is likability. I hear this on the phone sometimes, right, where people are going through the script, but you can hear the conversation ends up being a little bit what? Combative, and guess what happens to the person? They give you an objection. They don't stick with you. Meanwhile, they're down there. And if I say anything, most agents that we're competing with have no differentiation, no systems, no processes, no chart to present. They're getting your people because they're having a better connection with them than you are. Period. And even though personality is a weak differentiator, if they're better at that than you, then they're going to win. And so part of what we're going to talk about here is you got to be super, super dialed into likability, because that's what's going to happen if they like you or not, no matter how good your presentation is. Right. Number 2, tonality. This is the biggest mistake I see right now on the phones. Biggest mistake I see when you're talking to your people. I hear deals going on, and the tonality is not in a place where it's connection with the client. It's combative in a way, right? It's something that they're not going to be influenced by you because of how the tonality is. And here's the thing. You can say the same message as me, but if your tonality's off, right, all of a sudden it's us versus them with your client, and all of a sudden their trust with you is gone. And there's more pieces to that puzzle, but one of the things that fixes that is a tonality connection all the time. Number 3, this is the third part of this, is energy. There has to be a deep energy of connection. Energy of connecting. How do I plug into their energy? How do they feel me? How am I plugging into what they're doing? Now, this is through the whole transaction now. This is not just on the front end. It's easy to fake it for a little bit. It's easy to fake it on the phone call. But when they see me, right, when I walk into that door, no matter what kind of I got going on in my life, my other deals, all the chaos going on, I got to flip that switch and make sure I'm able to come in and have the energy of connection with them in that moment. Everyone can have the same message, but the energy of the messenger is what makes a difference. You see the same thing from a phone call, where somebody calls somebody after you call them, they get them converted, anybody else going against them, but you have to make sure that you're packaging your energy as the messenger in a way they're going to receive it, in a way they're going to want it. If I'm low energy, I'm not going to sell. Bottom line is, why? Because no one's going to be excited by it, no one's going to really trust you and want to be connected to you. You've got to make sure you find a way to manufacture that at all times, okay? And so that's the blueprint there. And the fourth part here, which is important, is I've got to have the part, I've got to actually care. I got to actually care. And I have to show that I care in how I talk with them and how I operate with them and how they feel when I speak with them. Which goes back to what? My likability, my tonality, my energy has got to add up to the point where they feel and know that I care about them. Every decision you make, every interaction you make has got to be with making sure I'm having a care for them that they can actually, what? I've said it a million times. Feel. They've got to be able to feel me. Now, if I can't feel, then they can't feel. And so I've got to find a way to manufacture that where I'm not going to be able to survive and be good in this business. As the pressure rises, right, the cream of the crop's going to have to rise. I'm going to have to find some way to make sure I'm doing that, and I got to be obsessed with doing that. Second part of this equation, which I'm running into and seeing happen all the time, is consistency. There's multiple pieces to this puzzle, and it builds off connection. So this is how the client feels, consumer feels, and are they going to stay with me in business for this year, right, and follow through with that. The first part is in my follow-up, right? In my follow-up, I have to have consistency in my follow-up. That's on the front end, right? We're seeing this on both sides. I see the seller side. We get a seller lead, we call them 3 or 4 times, they no-show us, and then what happens? They go to the abyss, we don't ever see them again or talk to them again. So a lead that costs $2,000 to generate, we call them once or twice, they have something come up, we miss them, we don't get back with them consistently in our follow-up. The same thing with buyer stuff, right? We got leads in right now that have been there for 12 days and call one time. There's got to be consistency in the follow-up. Why? Because there's a lot of noise right now. They have 1 million agents calling them, 1 million people calling them. Whoever's the most consistent in follow-up is going to win the game. Second part of this is in my communication. Every complaint I get, guess what they tell me?
They never call me back.
Oh, they never call me back. I don't hear from them. I have to reach out to them. I'm not sure what's going on. It really goes back to the same analogy I talked about when you have the airplane pilot who doesn't say, I had one of those in one of my flights last week. It's a very pilot, all this stuff going on. Dude hasn't said one word. Right? Great pilots get on there and talk about what's going on, what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. It's going to be a smooth flight today. Weather's great. 1 or 2 storms will fly around, no problem. That's what makes for a great flight. That's the point, is I got to make sure I'm having consistency in my communication. That means I'm proactive. If they're calling you, you've already lost the game. You are not doing your job. If your client has to call you, right, you're not doing your job, because that means they're wondering and they're calling other people too. You've got to make sure that you're following up consistently. What does that mean? Have to have task plans in place, have to manage a calendar, have to be able to do the same thing at the same time on the same days. The same thing at the same time on the same days. I need to have communication for who? My clients. Every signed client need to have a certain time I call them. That's planned. Certain day of the week. Specifically, I'm worried more so about the ones who I signed and haven't bought yet. Why is that? That's the lowest hanging fruit. Who has a relationship with me, who trusts me, who feels me, who I'm in this aura or this vortex, so to speak, of trying to get their business. But what's happening is we're doing steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're getting them inside into the vortex. And what happens, we drop the ball. And really more than anything, we just lose their trust because we're not consistent in communication. And so if we're inconsistent, that actually creates more of a problem because they don't really know what the hell is going on. They think that they're just a side piece that you're getting to when it's convenient. And so there has to be what? Systems and processes in place to make sure you're doing this. Next one's response. Number 1, do what you say you're going to do. Right? If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to call you. I got to call you no matter how it feels, no matter how much I want to avoid it, no matter how much I don't want to do it, I got to call you anyways. Because I want the outcome on the back end, which is obviously to get a successful sale, for them to get to the finish line so I can get paid on the back end as a byproduct. If they call me and I'm busy, what I got to do? Text them. I have a pre-done text in my phone. I can one click, hey, I'm the client right now. I'm going to call you back as soon as I can. I got you on my list, whatever it is. Right? Hey, thanks so much for the call. I'm with the client right now. I'll call you right back. As soon as I get finished up with this, it may be an hour or two, whatever it is. Give yourself some time to do so, because if you guys notice, if you don't do that, what happens?
They call the office.
They call the office, they call the money phone, they call you back again. Now all of a sudden, they feel like the plane's crashing. Meanwhile, you're back to back with appointments. A simple follow-up, when it needs to be done, comes down to what? Discipline. Discipline, discipline, discipline. And Barrett actually nailed the fourth part of this one. The fourth part of this, which is super important, is depth. Short, breathless responses say fuck you to the client. And so you got to be aware at a high level in psychology, how do my emails come across? How do my text messages come across? And do I need to pick up the telephone right now and go deeper so that they know what? Did I care and we're still in connection? You've got to be articulate and write messages in a way that show that you what? Have a connection to them and you care. That means slowing down, taking the time. Why? Because I got to maintain my consistency, my connection with them in how I have my depth of response. And like Barron said earlier, if that means picking up the phone, what I got to do? Call them and connect. And here's the thing. I may think that we're connected, that we're in great rapport, they love me, everything's great, but meanwhile they're talking to 3 other agents at the same time. And because I didn't respond to them with what they wanted and what they needed, and I only gave a half-assed response, they're on Zillow searching for someone else to answer the question that I should have answered the first time. Third part, this is important right now. I think this is kind of the apex of what I'm seeing people. When they come, they're angry, and they want to get out, or they're going with someone else, it comes down. The third C is competency. They got to know you're good, period. They got to know it, feel it, own it, that you're the good and you're the best, and that you're going to be able to drive them through the current marketplace right now. Because there's so much uncertainty, there's so much doubt, they're doubting you at a higher level as soon as you're walking into the door with them. And so the first part of that, right, starts with my message. Am I clear and concise at all times what my message is? Here's who I am, here's what I do, here's who we are, here's how we're navigating this current market to kick ass and give you an advantage. Every single communication I have has to lead with the message of competency. Even though I know I'm good, I have to articulate to them how good I am and how good we are without being a jerk, right? Just to make sure I'm able to help guide them through that process, right? Second piece of this competency is this. Data. How many people here right now can tell me the exact inventory for last month and the exact sales increase last month?
20-something% increase. We're down at 1.01.
You guys get my point? Right? Out of 20 plus people, 2 kind of got it. Right? And that wasn't with much certainty. And so
21%.
The reality is you've got to make sure that I'm talking data as part of my message. Why? This is where high-level psychology comes in. If I'm weaving in the data into my message, I'm showing a higher level of expertise, which gives a level of what? Competency. And so I've got to be proactive in my message, talking a language that no one else is talking. Why is that? Because when they talk to the dumbass agent from Zillow, who they went online with, who's not talking the same data and information I am, I'm now differentiated at a higher level, and they're going to be more likely to stay with me and be loyal.
I think third-party stories can be
Dude,
data too.
you read
I'm
my-
not gonna say that next.
You read my notes, bro.
Yeah.
Third part is stories. You've got to get very good at stories. Something we talked about, spent a lot of time with last week too. I've got to get very, very, very good at stories. And weaving the stories into my message so that they're seeing my what? Competency. I've got to be a very, very good storyteller. That's one lesson I learned that Garrett's very good at. You've got to be able to find a way to make the ordinary seem extraordinary through stories. Why? People's brains, right? I taught this a long time ago. People's brains run on loops. And so if I create a loop, which is also a story, their brain has no choice but to follow that story so they can do what? Close the loop. And so if I'm able to tell stories and layer in my data, third-party stories, and what's happening, is that's how I have them follow along, and that's how I'm building in layers of competency by talking about third-party stories that I have and also that they've going to be able to experience or other people we have in the office. That's why Thursdays are so important, so you can take other people's stories, share that ability, and use that with your clients as you're able to go on. Now here's the thing. If you're a great storyteller as an agent, people are going to want to follow you and work with you. Why is that? Well, you have stories about things that are happening, that are going on, that you're seeing, right? This could be in the industry. Here's the deal. You don't got a whole lot of going on. What can you do? Read the news, right? Google real estate news. Go to CNBC.com. Look at real estate stuff. Look at the mortgage stuff, right? To have things to talk about, weave that story in, and more importantly, we have the stuff on Thursdays, the huddles, all this, right? Is for you guys to have abilities to add in more stories. My stories have one job to do. They got to lay the groundwork. And so strategically, I'm layering in my stories as pre-frames to layer in groundwork of what's going to happen next and how we're going to make moves based on what happens in that process. Now, if I'm just along for the ride, like a horse that's just a runaway horse and trying to hang on for my life, I'm not going to have the ability to dominate and guide. I'm going to be purely in a reaction mode. So if I don't got my shit together, my schedule's not good, I'm not in a clear place of mind, my energy's not right, I'm not going to have the foresight and ability to layer this groundwork up front to really reduce any problems in the back end. Fourth part here is certainty, right? I must have this at all times, right? If I had to do this, I think that the way I originally had this word in here was package. The way I'm packaged has a way of pure competency. They're feeling me, they're seeing me, the way I dress, the way I show up, I'm on time, I'm early, all my together, and I'm here layered in so they have the energy and ability to come across and dominate that conversation at every single time. Some of you can watch the chaos going on in you, just in how you operate here, not in front of the client, and you can tell that you're just melting right in front of them. And you feel like you're doing some shit, but ultimately you're not because you don't have the competency when it's just you. Much less face-to-face with a client, with pressure, with your phone ringing, with everything else going on. And so this comes down to what's important. The way I really broke this down is this aspect here is you have to have and create an attractive character at all times. You got to create attractive character. Some of y'all aren't there yet. And so you got to take the time to craft that person and spend time working on it. But if you've been here for 3 months, 6 months, you haven't been through 100 Days of Greatness, haven't been through Jordan Belfort 6, 7 times, you are you don't have the drive to even make yourself in this attractive character, even though you're brand new. Some of y'all watching Netflix and all this other shit, but you haven't been through the 100 Days of Greatness yet. You're period. And so you got to make sure that you're creating this at all times. You could probably get away with it 3 years ago. You can't get away with that right now. If you're not an attractive character, they're getting all the best clients. Why? Because buyers are scrambling, sellers are scrambling right now to find the absolute best because the stakes are so high. Last one here. I've got to be a closer. Got to be a closer. First part of close, which is important. This is where everybody's lacking the most that I feel, is I got to lead. When it's chaotic and I'm buying the largest or I'm selling the largest asset that I own. I want somebody to lead. I gave you guys an example before about when I was looking at insurance. I wanted some insurance, I wanted great coverage, and the person's like, well, I don't know, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know, that's what I'm calling you for. I want somebody who knows what they're doing, who can guide me and tell me what I need to do. I don't want the cheapest, I want the best so I'm covered. But they didn't really understand that, and they didn't do what? They didn't lead. Second part, most important part here on top of that is I got to be a guide. It's we're missing a lot here, I think, when I was analyzing everything, is you got to be a guide. They want somebody who's going to lead them and tell them what's going to happen next. Here's where we're at. Here's what's happening next. So many times we're leaving a vacuum right now with our people. They're scrambling like a scrambled egg, just dancing everywhere until they find somebody else. Because you're leading that vacuum open. Oh no, here's what's going to happen. We're going to take that, we're going to turn, I got to where when I fly now, I type in the flight into FlightAware, and I can see their predefined flight pattern. I know exactly when they're going to turn. So when the dude does a crazy right turn, and we're sideways, guess what? I know we're supposed to do a right turn. When we fly over the ocean and do a straight U-turn back, I don't think we're trying to land real quick because there's a problem. I know we're going back inland. We just had to take off going into the wind. And once I know the guidance there and what's going to happen, now I know I'm just following the flight path with small changes if needed. But if I don't really have that and I don't talk about my people, I'm not guiding them to what the next steps are. Here's what's going to happen. Hey, look, we're going to have an appraisal. The appraisal may come in short right now. Why is that? Because the market's crazy. By the way, let me tell you this third-party story about my other clients who had the same problem, and here's how we're going to attack that once that does come up. Third piece right here, super important. So lead, guide. The third one is collide. I've got to kill their bullshit stories fast. We're letting this bullshit go too high, too fast. We're being too nice. And I'll talk about this a lot downstairs with Susan. The minute that they're full of shit, living in their false reality, I've got to be able to collide with them, bring them back to reality. Right? From fantasy to fact. Why? Because the longer I let it go, the more out of control it gets and the less ability I have to reel them back in. When you add emotions and the craziness of what's going on, I got to be able to have the guts and ability to collide with them when they're believing something that's not real. And I do that, what? With all these other pieces. Why? So they know I'm very good at what I do. I'm the absolute best, right? And I have all this stuff in data. I use all these pieces here to help me execute here, which is where all the money's made. Right? The absolute best agents right now collide with them and tell them the truth and tell them what they need so they can make the right decisions. Last one here, which is important, somebody brought up a minute ago, which I think is very, very important, is I got to be willing to close. I got to ask for the close, I got to ask the questions to close, and I got to pre-frame in my trial closes. So it leads up to every single conversation I'm having, every single conversation from the presentation all the way to the closing table, I'm asking questions which are basically, if I could, would you? Right? If we get this done and get this done with X amount in a home inspection or whatever it is, are you guys okay with moving forward? Right? Trial close, locking down so they can't back up. I'm closing that door. Why? Because they need that. There's so much emotion involved. You let that in there, it's going to kill the facts and it's going to cost them in regards to what they do. You guys with me on this? Very important. And so I got to make sure I'm, number one, asking the right questions. Number two, I'm closing when it's uncomfortable. We talked about that. That feeling you get the butterflies is when you guys step up and take action the hardest.